Good evening, Year 11, and welcome to your night before news for Maths Paper 2 Higher. So, now we've had Paper 1 almost 3 weeks ago, or over 3 weeks ago now, we can start to think about what's going to be in Paper 2 and Paper 3 and what it could be that we want to focus on. To start with, we can think about what came up in Paper 1 and what things aren't we likely to see again. So you can see now all these topics that were in Paper 1, lots of these things now we've seen are not going to come up again in Paper 2 and Paper 3. So we can narrow our focus a little bit. Some things here we don't have to worry about. For example, surds and recurring decimals, which we thought were going to be likely in Paper 1 have come up. But there's some other things as well that have come up in Paper 1 here, which we now don't think are going to come up in Paper 2 or Paper 3. For example, quadratic graphs, angles and polygons, and algebraic proof. What we can say, though, is what could be in Paper 2 and Paper 3. Now, we can't say that those lists I've just given you isn't going to come up, but we can think about other areas to focus on now we've seen that paper. One really important note is to make sure you're revising using both Paper 2s and Paper 3s. It's not in the case in maths that everything comes up in Paper 1 all the time, everything comes up in Paper 2 all the time, everything comes up in Paper 3. The calculated topics across Paper 2 and Paper 3 could be in either, so make sure if you're looking for questions tonight, you don't just look at Paper 2s. But if we break this down to look at area by area, the first thing we might talk about is algebra. You can see here there are a lot of algebra topics that still could come up, and this is the biggest section of things where there are things we could see. You can see lots on there that could come up for algebra. So take a second to read through this list, pause the video at this point if you need to look at that list and think about which of these things could you focus on tonight. Similar here for geometry. Again, that list still fairly long for geometry, and in particular now we're going to the calculator paper. The further trigonometry, your sine rule, your cosine rule, those things increasingly likely to come up, but so could all of these other things. Again, take a second, pause the video, make a note of anything here you might want to look at. Think about the fact that in transformations we've seen a rotation, we've seen an enlargement. So we haven't seen reflection and translation, so we could see those, but again, there's no guarantee with the translation, but lots of things there for you to be thinking about. Similarly for statistics and probability, some things we've seen already, but lots of things here we haven't seen, particularly for your higher paper, looking at cumulative frequency and box plots. Two things there that weren't in Paper 1 that we could see in Paper 2 or Paper 3. In number, a lot less here, a lot less of those number things in the higher paper more generally, but we saw quite a lot of that in Paper 1, so a few number things here that you could see in Paper 2. And then ratio and proportion. There was a question that included ratio, probably likely to see another question that involves ratio, and could see some currency conversions. Talks about direct and inverse proportion here. We had proportion equations, so where you need to introduce that constant k in Paper 1, so that's not going to come up again. But it could just be a worded direct or inverse proportion question that we could see. All of those things are topics which could come up. They're not all going to come up, and we can't say exactly what will, but as I say, go back and look at those lists, make a note of what you want to look at, and then this evening, a few reminders of what you could do. So if you wanted to look at one of those topics in particular, you could go to Sparks, and we know how this works, go to the independent learning section and search for that topic. Obviously, you're not going to search for surds because surds isn't going to be in Paper 2 or Paper 3, but you could look at Sparks Maths. You could go onto ExamQ, and here you can specifically look at Paper 2 and Paper 3 content. It could be you just want to have a general picture of what could come up in Paper 2 or Paper 3. So you might do a search like the one shown there. If you do that, bear in mind those topics we have seen and don't look at those. Make sure it's set to higher and you are looking at the calculator questions. You could then search for individual topics that you would like to look at. On there, of course, you do have the mark scheme, which means you can double check what you've done and see what the marks are for. You could go to Maths Genie, again another really good place to look at specific topics, clicking the GCSE revision section and scrolling down. The first few ones, grades 1 to 5, not necessarily something we're going to be looking at, but those later ones, grades 7, 8 and 9, we're going to see some of those questions, your cumulative frequency, your box plots, your iteration, those things in those later topics, see if there's something there you would like to look at. Or you might go to Corbett, similarly a huge bank of videos and worksheets, and those worksheets contain all sorts of things. Again, you're not going to do surds, but there are practice questions there, there are videos to watch, and there are lots of things for you to do. Alternatively, You could go to first class maths, similar to Maths Junior here, go to the revision section, and there are lots and lots and lots of faculty of exam questions here with solutions, with video explanations to help you. Also tells you how likely they are to come up, how often we see them in past exam series, so that could help you focus your revision that little bit more. But it might be you want to do practice papers, and again, we know where to get those practice papers. Maths Genie, go to EdXL and exam papers. And there are loads on there that have solutions and have videos for you to look at. Remember, when you are revising those past papers, really, really important that you look at paper 2s and paper 3s. Tomorrow morning, we know we're going to have revision in the gym. You know the hub is open from 7. And I said this for paper 1, and it was really good that lots of you did this. I helped lots of people before paper 1 with questions they couldn't answer from the night before. I will keep on going on about it because it's the most important thing for you to be doing. Having done revision the night before, having done revision in the days leading up to paper 2, there is still a topic you're not sure about. It could be worth 3 marks, it could be worth 4 marks in the paper. That could be the difference between a 6 and a 7, a 7 and an 8, or an 8 and a 9. So if there's something you're still not sure about, bring it to that hub, or from 7 o'clock, come to the gym and ask a teacher about it. You will see your breakfast revision mats. You know what these are like. It was really good to see so many of you engaging with these positively in paper 1. Same thing again here. Don't just go, I know how to do this question, so I'm going to practice that one. Pick something you know you struggle with. Get help from a maths teacher to have that 3 or 4 extra marks in your paper. It's really, really important we're engaged in the correct way. Paper 1 was fantastic. Let's see if we can replicate that for paper 2. My final message, as always, is good luck. Make sure you're using your time wisely tonight and bring those questions tomorrow to the hub from 7 to the gym with things you cannot do. Make the difference the morning of the exam with those extra 3 or 4 marks. Good luck.